Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. It's nice to see some familiar faces and some new faces. We are letting folks in as they join, and so we're going to kick off in just like 2 minutes. And folks, you're welcome to introduce yourselves, and if you'd like to in the chat, you can say your name, your newsroom, your role, what country you're from also would be lovely to see as well. See, we have some folks from Europe, from New York. Welcome, welcome. I see we have some folks from Africa joining us as well. It's good to see everybody. All right, let's get going. We want to make the most of everybody's time today. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Hopefully you all can see my slides. All right, so welcome everybody. My name is Nikita Patel and I am Senior Director of Leadership Programs at the Craig Newmark Graduate School of Journalism at CUNY in New York City. And I'm actually coming to you live from Atlanta. I don't live in Manhattan anymore, but I used to for a long time. And today we're here to talk about our executive program in news, innovation, and leadership. And so I will be doing an overview of the program, and then we have not one, not two, but three of our incredible alums from our class of 2023 joining us for Q&A. So we have Jin Ding from Initia Media, who is their new CEO. We have Laura Krantz from the Chronicle of Higher Education and Madeline Bayer from El Timpano. So welcome, ladies. Really excited to be chatting with you here shortly. Thank you for joining us today. So let's get into details about the program. And it would help if I were presenting my screen. There we go. All right. So, as mentioned, today we're here to talk about our executive program at CUNY, since applications are open now until Friday, May the 3rd. So the reason this program was created by Anita Zialina and Jeff Jarvis was to basically ensure that newsrooms are ready, that leaders are prepared in order to think about driving transformation, building successful products, and innovating with business models. And I think this program is even more meaningful today more than ever because of everything that's happening within our industry. In creating this program, they did a ton of research and conducted a survey with over 90 media leaders around the world. And here are some of the things that news leaders were sharing. We need folks who can bring about more innovative product people into leadership roles. We are looking to fill a diverse pipeline with change makers. We're looking to have folks that know a lot more about the business side of journalism. And so one of the reasons, one of many, is how this program was created 4 years ago. And I've been thrilled to take over the helm now for about a year and a half. So here's the mission of this program. So as I mentioned, at CUNY, we aim to equip a diverse group of changemakers with knowledge, skills, and the network necessary to lead transformation of the news business. Now, there are other leadership programs out there, and they are all amazing. And I actually know the folks that run those programs, and they do an amazing job at that. But what makes our program distinct is our approach, our curriculum, and the way we think about the future of news and journalism. This program is like an MBA for news leaders, and it's actually a program that I myself was looking for a few years ago, and I happen to now be running it. And I like to think that what makes our program unique is that we focus at the intersection of business, editorial, product, and technology. When we're training leaders, we take this sort of holistic approach, but everything is rooted in the business of journalism because sustainability should be top of mind for everyone. And then here's just a look at some of the nuts and bolts of the program. So this program is 1 year long, and the next cohort that will kick off will be the 5th cohort, and that starts in September. And so this program is an academic year long from September until June, and it consists of 3 in-person residencies with weekly online classes and ongoing coaching. Each cohort every year is about 20 to 25 leaders from around the world, both from legacy newsrooms, nonprofits, independent newsrooms, you name it. We love to have a diverse group of leaders from many, many countries represented and many types of news organizations also, because we believe that that makes for a much more well-rounded, richer learning experience. Participants also come from not only editorial, but they could be heads of product, be on the technology team, work on the business side. We also like to have folks from different roles within news organizations, and they tend to learn a lot because this program is a 360 well-rounding leadership training as well. We have many different classes and workshops. I also teach in addition to running the program. So I oversee fundraising, recruiting, and I'm one of many of our incredible instructors, and our instructors come from the US and work in newsrooms around the world as well. And then within our residencies, we have a ton of great activities in those weeks. We have many classes, we have newsroom visits, we have guest speakers come in, and we also have social activities as well. And then, as I mentioned, an element of the program is coaching, because everybody has to do a capstone project, and I'll discuss what the projects are, and hopefully we'll hear about some of the projects from our alums on this call today as well. But in the process of determining what your capstone project will be, everyone is paired with a coach in order to help them with their projects as well. And then here is a quick look at the syllabus. So as I mentioned, the business of journalism is one of the biggest pillars of the program, as well as finance classes. We also have classes focused on product management, reader revenue and subscriptions, different sort of business models, managing technology, strategy, operations, audience, managing culture and change, and diversity and inclusion as well. We also host a monthly workshop, and those really vary from managing difficult conversations to leading with resilience, career development. The workshops are really fun and very interactive. And then, as I mentioned, ongoing activities in addition to the residencies and weekly classes are working on capstone projects, coaching and mentoring, and there are oftentimes a bunch of networking events and things like virtual events as well as in-person events. We like to get our cohorts together when we are all at events like the Online News Association conference, for instance, or the upcoming International Journalism Festival in Perugia. And so once folks are in our programs, they become part of like a broader alumni network where we love to bring everybody together, either virtually and in person. And then the executive program also includes leadership circles and specific leadership workshops as well. Then I want to spend a few minutes now talking about the outcomes. So once folks have got through the program, then what happens? Well, they're equipped with a number of different skills, a number of different strategies when it comes to building and executing with products. They're able to sort of really hone in on new and different revenue models and audience growth strategies. They have the latest and greatest industry best practices when it comes to org structure, revenue on the business side. They've gone through a number of leadership trainings, and they've now gotten a number of different tools and frameworks in order to use and apply right away. And what's also amazing is that we see from different members of our alumni network that sometimes they are referring back to class materials and sort of have a light bulb aha moment, a year or two after the program, and they come back to reference their class materials or they bounce ideas off of members of their cohorts as well. And so it's really lovely to see cohorts, continuing to meet offline and gather and whatnot. They have a continuous bond. And we like to foster that sense of relationships too, not only within cohorts, but the broader Newmark J School alumni and community and within the media ecosystem as well. And then importantly here, I want to spend a few minutes talking about the cost of the program, because this is a 1 year long journalism MBA style program. Tuition is $27,000. This includes, as I mentioned, tuition itself, coaching, learning materials, and then access to networking events and being part of our alumni network. This does not include travel to New York and accommodations for those 3 residencies. And so, we can all acknowledge that 27,000 is a lot. And so this is why fundraising is really important to me. And especially as a woman of color, I want to make sure that this program is accessible. So I'm currently in fundraising mode right now and talking to a lot of organizations in order to help provide scholarship money. And so the good thing is that every year we typically have a limited number of scholarships, and in some cases those might cover full tuition, in some cases half of the tuition, or let's say 5 or 10K. And so everybody that applies for the program who is accepted is actually eligible for scholarships. And so at that juncture, we then take a look at the sort of folks we want to accept into the program and funds that are available and kind of try to do matching the best we can. And then I want to talk a little bit about the timeline. So as I mentioned, we have the 3 in-person residencies, and this year the program kicks off on September the 9th in New York, and then we are virtual on a weekly basis until the week of the end of February for the 2nd residency. Then we are virtual again until the end of June, where we come together for a final residency, and we have a lovely graduation ceremony as well. So this is a snapshot of the timeline for the upcoming year. And then here is a quick look at our current cohort. They are midway through the program and they've been absolutely loving it and have been enjoying this experience. And so we have some amazing folks. We have Joyce, who is global editor of diversity at Reuters. We have Lizelle Tanglao in the cohort, assisting managing editor at the Dallas Morning News. We have Amy Reinhardt, who oversees AI efforts at the Associated Press. So as you can see, this is a diverse cohort. It's actually heavily focused on women, and we have some great leaders of color from around the world in this cohort as well. And then I just wanted to share some nuggets here about sort of folks' satisfaction in the program and then impact. And so this is based off of a feedback survey and findings from the latest class of 2023. And so 95% of them felt that the program exceeded their expectations. On average, they rated the program a 9 out of 10, which is incredible. Our Net Promoter Score is 86.4, which is really high, higher than the industry standard for higher education programs. And then 100% of the participants completed the program and got a certificate of completion. So upon delivering your final capstone project and going through all the classes and everything, everybody gets a certification of completion. And then 5, and I think this is more since that survey was conducted, but 5 or more participants received a promotion or started a new gig, much larger in scope as well. And then here are just a few great testimonials from different leaders who have done the program. So this is Sewell Chan saying he could not have imagined doing this program, and the outcomes far exceeded what he was expecting. Then next we have Roz Warren, who is audience editor at Reuters. And she said, this course is for people that want to add value, want to contribute, make the industry more diverse, more accessible, more creative, more innovative, more collaborative. There are so many ways that this program helps you in making those connections and doing that. And then here's an amazing quote from Cynthia DeBose, who is a fellow Atlantan who lives here not that far from me, actually. And she's SVP of Product and Experience at McClatchy. And she, in this quote, was saying that she was given a really large project to work on, and she felt like so many of the classes that we have enabled her to gain confidence and knowledge and skills when it comes to the program. And so we love, love, love that we have amazing alums who continue to do fantastic work in the industry, and you'll hear from 3 of them soon. And then a quick look at the application process. And so where things are at now, as I mentioned, applications are open now until Friday, May the 3rd. So there is some time to gather materials, but I would suggest getting a jump on that now. And those materials include your resume or CV, crafting a letter of intent, which is basically, a 1-page memo that explains why you're interested in doing the program and what you hope to get out of it, and then 2 letters of reference. And the letters of reference could be from your manager, they could be from someone else you've worked with for a long time, could be a peer in the industry, a mentor perhaps. And so just a few ideas there. And then everything has to be submitted through our website. The link is here, and hopefully Divine can put that in the chat for the application form. As I mentioned, the applications need to be completed by Friday, May the 3rd, which also happens to be World Press Freedom Day. And then we will begin interviews actually starting next month. So we basically do rolling interviews as applications come in. And so if you apply sooner, the sooner you will hopefully be interviewed. And so as I mentioned, are already going to begin the interviews in the next few weeks. Usually the process is that folks have a first interview with me, and then we have an interview panel for the second interview, which is usually members of our executive team and folks at CUNY. And then we decide and huddle on who we'd like to admit into the next cohort in May. And then we send acceptance letters out in June. And at that juncture, as I mentioned, is when we like to sort of be able to have scholarship updates as well. Then we announce the new cohort in August, and we kick off in September. So this is a full look at the timeline for everything that has to happen before the program officially starts. And if you want to get in touch, obviously you can go to our website. It's linked here. We'll drop it in the chat as well. My information is here. If you need to reach me, I'm just nikita.patel@journalism.cuny.edu. And our team, you can also reach us at leadership@journalism.cuny.edu as well. So as I mentioned, now we're going to have Q&A. So I'm going to just stop sharing my screen, and we can, that way we'll be able to see each other. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to put them in the chat. And then after I'm going to ask our members for our alumni a couple of questions. And then feel free at that point, leave your questions in the chat, or you can raise your hands and then we'll call on you to unmute and answer your questions as well. So thank you so much to Madeline, Jin, and Laura for joining us today. The 3 of them are from our class of 2023. As I mentioned, they graduated from the program last June, and I'm really honored to have you join us today and just have a few questions for you. And I think let me start with, I'll go in the order that I can see you all. So I'll start with Madeline, then Jin and Laura, but I'd love to hear from each of you as to what made you apply for the program.
Yeah, sure. So I started my entrepreneurship journey about 7 years ago, when I started this thing that has grown to become an organization called El Tímpano. And for the first 4 years or so, I was a solopreneur, oftentimes working on this as kind of a side project while I had a day job. But in the last 3 years or so, the organization really began to grow. And when I applied for this program, El Tímpano was really entering into a new phase, which put me in a new role as a leader. So we grew in 2022 from a 1-person organization to a 6-person organization. And then the following year, we doubled in size again. And leading a team is very different than leading an idea on your own. And so I applied for this program really wanting to strengthen my skills as a leader, learning more about management, about growing an organization. So I was kind of looking for everything, and got so much out of it. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you. Jin?
Yeah, sure. I started the program 2 months. I applied for it 2 months into a new job, which was my last job at the Center for Public Integrity. That was actually my first time in my career I entered executive rank, and I felt like it's it requires a lot more than the time when I was just managing like a portfolio or just managing a small group inside of a big organization. So at that time, I felt like I needed to have a rounded knowledge about every section of the journalism business, and many of those skills, to be honest, I went through business school many years ago, but I just don't remember any of them anymore. So I was looking specifically for a program that is not only project based, but actually will help me to develop like all kinds of skills that would make me feel comfortable and confident at my job. I really felt like that. So I reached out to many CUNY alums, including Sewell, that being his code was shown in the slides. And after like consideration, basically Sewell told me, if you are a new leader, if you are looking for something that can make you feel comfortable and confident at work, at the board table, this is the program you're looking for. So and proven true.
I love that. Thank you, Jin. Laura?
Yeah, so hi everybody. I applied as I was at a very interesting spot in my career where I was moving from having only ever worked in newsrooms to working in a bridge role, where I really needed to understand the business side of a news organization. And I was very early in my leadership career. I guess I probably wouldn't have even referred to myself as like a leader with a capital L. And I was honestly really intimidated to apply to this program, and I didn't think that I would get in. So if you feel that way, please still apply. Um, and I would say it was super important for me because I even probably lacked even some of the vocabulary to talk about the business concepts that I like knew in reality because I had been in news organizations for my whole career, but suddenly I had like actual learnings to back that up, and I knew that was something that I could get out of this program because I had honestly always thought about like leaving journalism and going to get an MBA to try to solve journalism. And this program like is essentially that. Like you don't have to leave the industry. You can learn all the skills that you need to be effective on the business side. I don't even like calling it that. But yeah, so it was important for me because I was moving from the newsroom to working across the whole organization.
Thank you so much, Laura. And I fully agree. This program is literally what I was looking for myself a few years ago. And I reached out to my predecessor, Anita Zielina. At the time, she was on the board of ONA with me. And I said, Anita, this program is exactly what I'm looking for, like a bespoke MBA style program specifically for news leaders. And she was so excited that I had reached out, but I had missed the application window and they were well into like the decision phase and everything. So she said, let's stay in touch. Let's keep talking. Then a couple of months later, she came back to me and she said, you know what, would you like to be a coach for the program instead? That way, the participants will benefit from that and you'll learn a lot more about the curriculum, and then you can absolutely apply next year. And I loved that because I have started coaching on the side as well. And then the irony is when I left the 19th, both Anita and Jeff approached me and they were like, you've been a fantastic coach. We know you wanted to do the program, but why don't you run the thing? And so I feel very lucky that I was able to turn a side hustle into my full-time hustle, but then that being overseeing a program like this, I get to spend so much time with incredible leaders like yourself. The three of you have inspired me so much. And the fact that I get to run this program, that I get to also be one of the instructors, and then learn from other instructors and from the different cohorts is just incredible. It's such a great overall learning program, and I just feel very blessed. So yeah, so moving on to my next question then, I'd love to kind of hear from the three of you on what some of your favorite classes or some of your favorite moments were during the program. How about this time we start with Jin?
Sure. I will mention probably one of the first leadership circles. We talked about finding your ikigai, and for folks who don't know, this is basically finding what actually motivates you, make you feel passionate about, and like finding your circle and your right moment to do the right thing. And I'm not explaining it as well as our coaches would, but I would say like about a year later, when I actually left my last job to find this job, and a few months into this job, I realized that um, I have found my ikigai in this journey, and it took me over a year to actually realize what that actually means. Exactly echoing what Nikhil talked about. Folks will look back to the class material like a year, 2 years later. I really think the whole year journey in CUNY, learning different aspects of the business and learning more about how to collaborate with others, how to find what is your sweet spot, and made me realize that I have found my true passion, and that actually contributed to why I wanted to kind of doing a shift in my career, and as well as learning what exactly is my leadership style is. So that, looking back, that is actually a very fond memory, even though at the moment I didn't realize what that actually meant.
Oh, I love that. Thank you for sharing that, Jen. And I feel so privileged to have had like a front row seat in like seeing that, evolution and your realization of what makes you tick, and then going after it and achieving that too. It's very special. So Laura, same question for you. What were some of your favorite moments or classes?
Yeah, I would say similarly that I found the leadership circles and the coaching, you as part of it, you also have like one-on-one calls with the leaders of the program, like to be so valuable, just because when else in life do you get to time to spend thinking about your own leadership style and journey? And I mean, the classes themselves are very empowering because then like real hard information about really important subjects. But I think like another part of it is gaining confidence, at least for me. And so like I found that the confidence that you get from the leadership trainings like is really valuable, and also camaraderie too, because you learn so much from the other people in the program, which I didn't really think about going into, but was really silly not to, because especially you're learning from people from other parts of the world, and I found that really unexpectedly really important.
Absolutely. Madeline?
Yeah, I will echo both Laura and Jen. I got so much from just the cohort itself and continue to. And I think, both the opportunity to spend time together in person and then followed by the leadership circle meetings. The program did a great job of really fostering a space of honesty and trust and vulnerability. And, the cohort, everyone comes from such different places, different organizations and contexts, but are often struggling with similar issues, and we're just like brilliant learnings from other people in the cohort, just as much as the amazing teachers themselves. But I will also highlight my favorite class was Lillian Ruiz's operations class. That was one of them. I mean, the great thing about this program is it's for working leaders. And so you can, it's really created to give you skills that you can put into practice immediately. And that was when we're like, right after the class, I was like, okay, we're going to create dashboards and, utilize these templates. And operations is an area where like projects or teams can really like live or die based on how efficient the processes and operations are. And that was a class that I really applied a lot of the learnings immediately and have continued to.
Amazing, thank you. Those really were great classes, and we had Lillian teach those again for us this year. All right, so now I'd love to ask each of you about sort of what would you say are some of your sort of key takeaways or learnings from the program? So let me start with Laura.
I guess I put a lot of, I mean, all the curriculum is very relevant, I would say. Like, and I find myself referring back to a lot of the classes, like almost on a daily basis, which is really remarkable. And like everything from like change management. So like we studied like the theories of change management. How do you, like in a big organization or a small one, like get new ideas accepted and adopted? And so like I use principles of that like in like I'm like leading a big giant project, but also just like in thinking about how to write certain emails, like you know, you can use things like that. And then I just found like the business strategy, like really understanding strategy as like a framework and a tool. And once you start thinking in those ways, like it's very clarifying, and it really like across everything that you do, or at least in my job, like it makes everything so much um clearer. What am I trying to do? What am I not trying to do? How am I going to accomplish that? And then how am I going to get that, you know, get support from that across my organization? So like a lot of those business concepts, like I find myself using them every day, and I refer back to lectures. I get my notes out. I like pulled out Anita Lee's like audience funnel for a presentation that I was presenting a couple weeks ago. It's really useful. Yeah.
Amazing, thank you. Madeline?
Yeah, I'll go back to Lillian's class. You know, I think one of the key learnings for me was really time management. You know, as a leader, and especially like a leader of a small but growing organization, you feel like you're doing everything at once, and there's often just not enough time to prioritize or to reflect or to strategize. And you know, a few of the classes really surfaced to me the importance of that and the need to really identify, you know, how can I make sure that for me as a leader, I'm carving out the time to strategize, and also as we're building a team, we're making sure that, you know, our processes are efficient as possible. Identifying, you know, this idea of time thieves is like, what is robbing us of time that we're not even realizing on a daily basis. And so that's been really valuable for me.
Amazing, I love that. Jen?
I would echo what Laura said about change management, because in my job, a big part of my job is to transform the organization into the new direction. So building on what we can do with the strategy and then how to implement it. At the same time, also thinking about the steps that we need to have to go through, we could not skip in order to get to the level of buy-in, in order to move everybody to the same direction. Those tools that I've learned from the program, I use every single day at my job. In addition to that, actually, I also use the audience funnel quite a lot when I try to explain things to folks. And also, basically, I would say all the classes goes hand in hand together. Even though the subjects could be seen completely different, finance versus audience, but at the same time, when you are managing day to day, you are using all those skills at the same time. You are going to finance off like deck to look at, okay, how do I calculate something like the return of investment that include the social impact. And then at the same time, you are also looking at, okay, like does this make sense if we want to put through that direction, how to actually use the change management skills. So all those things adding up together, I feel like that's the kind of the great way of weaving every single skill together in this program is the best outcome for me.
Amazing, thank you. All right, I just have one last question for our alums today, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. But my question is, how have you put your capstone projects into practice? Before I ask one of you to respond to that, though, let me quickly talk a little bit about the capstone projects. And so a lot of times folks who are applying for the program are like, what is that? Like, what does that consist of? And so I think it would be helpful just to give a brief overview first, but basically, everyone who is a participant in the program is asked to kind of think about sort of a capstone project and what they would like to focus on. Then they have a couple of months to decide. So no one has to decide right away. And then once you have an idea of what your project is, that's when you're paired with a coach and then can basically work on it throughout the year. And so a capstone project should be a challenge or a problem within your organization or within the industry at large. And the outcome is sort of like solutions or ways that you want to tackle that problem. And so it's one of my favorite things is reviewing the capstone projects and then seeing how different members of the cohort implement their capstone and how their capstone kind of continues living and breathing in time. And so some members of the cohort do publish them. Some may not be able to if some of the information is, proprietary to the organization, which is fine. But yeah, let me start then with Laura, since Laura, yours was actually recently written about in Nieman Lab, and I absolutely loved your capstone. All of them are incredible, but yours stood out to me in particular. So yeah, tell me a little bit about why don't you tell us about what your capstone is and kind of how you've been able to put it into practice?
Yeah, so I decided I was very new to my organization at the time we were coming up with the ideas. So I decided that I wanted to do a capstone project that was not based around a challenge that my organization was facing. And I felt like it was a unique opportunity that like I had a little bit of a chance to say something big about our industry. And so I decided to go that way, which I felt very like a lot of people were working on their organizations. And I felt like, oh, did I miss an opportunity? But I'm glad the way that I went. And so I essentially I was looking at, I wrote a paper essentially. I wrote an in-depth paper where I interviewed a lot of industry experts. And what Nikita is mentioning is that an excerpt of my big paper was recently published in Nieman, which has been really tremendous. And it's kind of cool to see the ideas from this program I think there's a lot of people out there who have been thinking the same things, and it's really gotten a lot of cool response, and it's been helpful to a lot of people. So, yeah, I wanted to tackle a big question, which was like, I saw a lot of people in our industry who have these kind of like innovation skills or change skills or audience or product, these kind of non-traditional journalism roles. And I wasn't really sure what their leadership paths were, because so often it's really hard for people in those kind of roles to advance to like real positions of power in organizations, because those positions are still held by people who have titles like editor. And so I wanted to look at it changed because I wanted to look at what is their career path. And then in interviewing some of the experts for the research, one person said like, well, if you're talking about like their career paths, you're really talking about like what even is the definition of leadership in media these days. So like it was a cool chance to like think really big thoughts that I would never have had the space to think about. And it turned into like a bigger idea than I started with, thanks to like the people that I interviewed for the project. And it turned into like, let's talk about rethinking who should be leading our media organizations. And maybe it actually is these people with these newer types of skills and different types of roles. And so it was just more of a big picture thinking. And it's been cool to see it resonate with a lot of people. So yeah, I think they put the link if you want to read it.
Amazing. Thank you, Laura. It's such a great exploration into like what it means to be a news leader today and to be forward thinking in that regard.
And a lot of the ideas were things that we talked about in the program. And so it was a cool chance to sort of synthesize what I had learned and like turn it into something that other people could read.
Absolutely. Jin, how about you?
So my capstone project was created in a way that I've been I'm a Chinese journalist, but I've been living in the US for the past over a decade. And I have been far away from Chinese journalism for the longest time ever in my life. I never actually imagined I would go back to Chinese journalism, and I didn't really know there is a path for me to do that. So my capstone project, I was looking into how can we actually serve the Chinese audience that are living globally, not only inside of China. And I proudly can report that I now work for my Case A newsroom as the CEO. When I started working on that capstone project, I never actually thought this is a job opportunity or this could become my next chapter in my career. I literally just thought, okay, nobody is doing this. Let me just fill the void, looking into what resources and what kind of struggles they're facing in Chinese journalism in literally a world that is, pretty hidden, and pretty inaccessible for majority of the English speakers. And in that process, I looked specifically into the Initial Media, which is the largest, one of the largest newsrooms in Chinese, and independently outside of China. And in that process, I started poking into different holes and asking questions and figuring out a new strategy that they may able to adapt in this capstone project. And very soon, both the Initial Media folks and myself have realized even if I give them goalposts and draw a map for them, they couldn't really walk on that map alone. So actually, at the end of my capstone project, literally the week I was presenting the capstone and graduating from CUNY, I was offered this job. So I would say it really went very far. And I'm currently still in the phase 2 of my capstone project, literally trying to solve the problem, bring the resource, and also walk on the map that I draw last year and modify that map as I go. So I've been really enjoying this, and also I think for me, if without this capstone, I would not actually finding a path into back into Chinese media, and that's tremendous for myself and for my community.
Oh, I love that. Thank you, Jin. And I learned so much reading your capstone. It was so informative and it was just so insightful because, as you said, so much is kind of hidden and there are things we just don't know about sort of Chinese media and stuff. So it was riveting. And so I was really glad to see you focus on that. And that, yeah, you keep iterating on it and that ultimately, opened doors for you. It's just fantastic. Madeline, how about you?
Yeah, my capstone was really an outline of how to really scale a revenue model that or a revenue strategy that my organization had developed. And it was it was challenging, I think, for all of us towards the end of the program to carve out the time to work on our capstone because we all have very demanding jobs and the program. But as Lauren suggested, it was great to have that opportunity to really do so because this is something that had been on my mind for a while, is just really outlining why is this strategy a great fit for our organization, which, incorporated a lot of the learnings from the program, and, what could we do with greater investment to scale it? And I actually just adapted it to send as a proposal to a funder just last week. So come back to me in a month and I'll tell you how that went.
I love it. Awesome. Thank you so much. So now I'd love to turn it over to Q&A. So for folks on Zoom, if you have a question, please do raise your hand. And when we call on you, you can unmute to ask a question, or you can, of course, leave a question in the chat. And then Divine, do let me know if there are any questions that I may have missed. But I see Sabrina, you have your hand up.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for the info session. My name is Sabrina. I'm the managing director for a non-profit media organization called Are We Europe, which is focused on diversifying the European media landscape. I'm based in Berlin, but we're actually in Paris this week doing some cross-border journalism stuff, and I'll be in Perugia in a couple of weeks. So if anyone's around, do say hi. My question was about the capstone projects, which has now been answered, but I do have more. And I did go through the website and different parts of the program, but I think, yeah, what I'd love to know is, does the program cover anything around nonprofit approaches to journalism and leadership? Because of course, a lot of those more strategic and business side stuff aren't always compatible with foundations, essentially, and especially on my side, most of our work is funded through EU programs. And then the second question I had is, how does the alumni stay in touch, and is there some kind of community management that keeps us all chatting long after the program?
Great, thank you. Great questions. So yeah, so I like to think we try to do our best within classes to sort of like address the different types of newsrooms and folks that are represented in the program. So, you know, even our instructors, some of the instructors will come from, let's say, some of the bigger newsrooms, but then some also have a background in nonprofits and independent newsrooms as well. And so we try to always have an open lens when we're talking about, let's say, business models or strategies and tactics, knowing that members of the cohort come from many different types of newsrooms. So I like to think we try our best to kind of show that and highlight examples of different newsrooms and what they're up to as well. I'd love to throw that to our alums to see if you got that impression too, because some of you do come from nonprofits and whatnot. So maybe Madeline, go ahead.
Yeah, I can say, Sabrina, my organization is a nonprofit. I think among the cohort is a real mix of nonprofit and for-profit. You know, at the end of the day, so much of the curriculum is really around, you know, strategy to lead a sustainable, innovative, healthy organization. And that's really applicable, you know, no matter your business, you know, setup. So yeah, I would definitely say it was applicable. Maybe Laura, do you want to talk a little bit about what you and SIPO have established in terms of
Oh yeah. Your
touch?
other question is, the answer is yes, we do stay in touch very much. I actually can't take credit for it, but SIFO, one of our cohort members, has put forth an effort to get us together once a month. So we're in Slack, and we have our own Slack channel of our cohort, and then the other cohorts have their own Slack channels and combined Slack channels. So the program does a very good job, I would say, between the Slack, and also there's alumni events in person and online, in like making you feel like part of a community, which like is new for me because I didn't go to, like, I guess people have that from their college, but I don't have that from my undergrad. And so like it definitely makes you feel like you're part of like a network, and you definitely stay in touch. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, to that
Can I
point-
just
oh yeah,
can I
please.
just add the because I went from 10 years in nonprofit to my first non-nonprofit job right now. And that transition happened basically right after the program. I just want to share right now, I see in the industry that's the line blurs between for-profit and a nonprofit at this moment. There are a lot of things that are overlapping. And there definitely will be people, I think, in nonprofit world applying for this program and get in. But at the same time, I also think I learned quite a lot of like different models that could potentially adapt it into nonprofits, even though right now they only exist in for-profit world. So I feel like that is actually a very big benefit of the program. And I grow more comfortable with, you know, subscriptions, paywalls, and how that live in the audience funnel and all those things within this program as well. Because I've literally never worked for like a strictly commercial for-profit organization before enter this program.
Thank you, Jin. That was great. And yes, to your other question about the networking element, I think Laura covered off on it, but we do take pride in our Slack community. Like, this is like inside baseball here, but like years ago, there was a whole separate Slack instance for each cohort, but we brought everyone together under one roof. And so each cohort still has their own little channel, but then many general ones that folks can be in. So we share like job postings, like different events. And then as mentioned, like we host, right now we have a monthly like AI series specifically for all the J Plus program alums. And then we get together like at ONA. There was a big happy hour that CUNY hosted, and we invited all of our alums together there. So quite a few of these ladies are there too. And then in Perugia as well, we similarly hope to be hosting a similar event. I'll be going, our dean is going, some other members of faculty, and then Jin, many members of our alumni network will be there as well. And so I'd love to meet you in person. Maybe we can get coffee or espresso or something while we're in Perugia. But yeah, we really do try to foster a sense of a strong network. And I myself am always available to like current members of the cohort and alums, and then some of the faculty at the school. The school also, by the way, is like we mean this when we say this, we want the physical school to also be like a home. And so when folks are in New York, they're welcome to stop by, come say hi, even have meetings out of there, use the space, like, so Jin is actually in New York, and you're going to drop by tomorrow, I think, right? So yeah, so we really do love that when students come and spend time with us and enjoy that space in Manhattan as well. So yeah. All right, I see Anthony, you have your hand up if you want to unmute.
Yes, Anthony Martinez from New York. Can you talk about managing the coursework with the workload? Given the field of journalism that we're in, things can change at the turn of a second, right? Breaking news can occur. How were you able to manage working in the news business as well as trying to continue with your coursework and class on a weekly schedule?
That's a great question. I will let our esteemed alums answer that.
Well, I just jump in because I gotta admit I did not do all my homework correctly. But I would say Laura is our probably star student among three of us, and Malin should agree. But I would just say that the first week as I entered the program, alums told me that do your readings. And I literally remind myself every single week to do my readings, at least, even just to glimpse through them when I'm busy. But there are some homeworks I spend more time to do, so there are some homeworks I spend less time to do. But to be honest, like it's a priority and a commitment issue, right? Like how much are you committed to do this? Work is always busy. Everyone is busy. But for me, I feel like I just tell myself, okay, Saturday morning is the time I spend 2 hours just at least to read everything. If Saturday doesn't work, I will have time to catch up on Sunday, on Monday. But I try to not leave it till like Tuesday evening, because that's basically set up yourself for failure.
Yeah, it's some of the classes had more readings or kind of prep work than others. Like anything, like Jen said, it's the what you put into it is what you'll get out of it. And so I think we all just tried our best to do the prep work so we could really participate in the discussions. And I'm on the West Coast, so maybe it actually helped for me. The classes were like early in the morning for me, so there was less chance of disruption, but also just meant a very, very early days for me in the program when we were virtual.
Yeah.
And just one follow-up question: when are the classes during the week?
Yeah, I was just going to say that, and thank you for your question, Anthony. But so last year classes were on Thursdays from 11 a.m. Eastern to 1 p.m. So it's generally time zone friendly. And this year classes have been on Wednesdays. And so it's always 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. just because we found it's like, bi-coastally friendly, and at least with Europe. Sorry for our APAC friends. We've really tried time zones. It can just be really tough. And then the monthly leadership workshops, those have consistently been on Tuesdays. So that's also 11 a.m. Eastern to 1 p.m. So just once. So usually there's like class once a week, but just once a month, there's 2 classes a week. But for leadership circles, there's never usually any readings or homework or anything like that. And those are very participatory. And then as members of the cohort have said, homework is sort of in terms of assignments or pre-reads, it kind of ebbs and flows depending on the modules that we're in. So sometimes They can be intense, like our finance classes can be rather intense with lengthy readings and then actual assignments to do, whereas sometimes there's hardly any readings and anything else to do. So it really just depends on where we're at within the curriculum. And what we also have done is we typically send a weekly note to the cohort just to remind them, you know, here's what's on tap for this week and here are your readings and that kind of thing. So Jin, maybe you'll appreciate this. We used to send that on Mondays. We actually now send that on Fridays, thanks to feedback from this latest cohort, knowing that on the weekends is when people do like to carve out a couple of hours, right? To kind of like recalibrate with the program, and maybe that's time for the readings and the assignments or even capstone work, right? Especially this time of year, it's now capstone season. So yeah, so hopefully that helps to answer your question, Anthony. So the weekly commitment is usually 2 hours of class, and then let's say an hour, maybe 2 of pre-reads and assignment work. And then once a month with that leadership cycle, it's just another 2 hours of class, but no prep for that usually. And then towards this time of year in the spring, obviously folks might spend a couple of hours a week on their capstone as well. So I see, Gabe, you have your hand up. How's it going, my friend?
Well, thank you. Hi, I'm Gabe Boylan. I'm from Rest of World. We're a nonprofit that covers technology stories from outside the West. I realize we don't have a ton of time, but I have sort of a quick one, and it's more about like balance in terms of learnings. You know, it seems like there's a lot of leadership learnings and a lot of kind of more evergreen strategy, and I wonder, you know, to balance that, how much time is spent on some of the more dynamic elements of the journalism business that are sort of like constantly changing, like we're all in a very, you know, dynamic world. How much time is sort of focused on some of those really burgeoning topics like AI, like, you know, all the things that we're sort of, you know, the changing world of SEO, like all the sort of things right now, how much time might get spent on some of those topics?
That's a great question. Yeah, we try to do a really good job of planning out the curriculum. And so, you know, months in advance, we schedule out classes and we're working with instructors on things. And right up until the day of class, you know, I might send them a thing of like, hey, this new thing has happened within AI. Let's like make sure it's covered in class and then we can talk about it. Or we try to sort of like be as timely as possible, even with evergreen topics and things like that. So a good example of that is maybe during our finance classes last year. I believe that's when the news about BuzzFeed News closing was happening. And so we were able to talk about it. And it was just the perfect storm of being in finance classes and talking about the economics of the business and then that happening. So we sometimes see that a lot. And then with AI last year, it came up in almost every single class, just given the explosion of ChatGPT and everything else. So this year we formally introduced AI classes into the curriculum, and we're actually in the middle of them now. So we have an AI class tomorrow. So yeah, so we try to be sort of as evergreen, but also timely and responsive at the same time. And the cohort members are fantastic of during group, you know, class discussions and things like that, they'll surface things as well. And then we also, in our Slack communities, we also have side conversations about timely things that are happening in the industry, as well as sharing continued best practices and articles and things like that. So so there's a little bit of both, if that helps, Gabe. So I recognize that we have 1 minute left, so we should probably wrap up. But I just want to thank everyone for joining us from around the world for this overview. So this session is recorded, so we'll be sending the video and the slides out after this. So if you subscribe to our newsletter, you'll be receiving this soon. You can also follow us on various social channels and platforms. Please don't hesitate to reach out. I had shared my email address earlier, and then our leadership team as well are here to answer any questions that you might have. And I want to say a special thank you to Madeline, Jin, and Laura. You, the three of you, continue to inspire me, and I'm just really honored that you were able to join us and to talk about your experiences in the program. So thank you so much to you for your time today, and thank you to everyone else.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah. Take care, folks. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.